can you go through several conspiracy theories that turned out to be true and give me descriptions of them? Like, let's find some of the ones that ended up being real. See if we can find a pattern. Here are some well-documented cases where things dismissed as paranoid speculation turned out to be real. Confirmed later through declassified documents, investigations, whistleblowers, or litigation. Here we go. MK Ultra, a CIA program running roughly 1953 to 1973 that experimented with mind control, behavior modification, and interrogation techniques. Wait, we've experimented with mind control? Did we figure it out? It involved dosing people, including unwitting. It included dosing people, including unwitting American and Canadian citizens? What? Why did you do it to Canadians? I feel assaulted. You didn't just do it to your own people. You did it to Canadians too? What is that? With LSD and other drugs, along with hypnosis and sensory deprivation. Much of it surfaced through the 1975 Church Committee of Rockefeller Commission, despite CIA Director Richard Helms having ordered most of the files destroyed in 1973. The surviving financial records are largely what allowed investigators to reconstruct it. What? How many Canadians were affected by MK Ultra? Did anyone die? What were the long-term ramifications? God, I don't even have to say the word properly and it gets it. Did they figure out mind control? Something tells me I'm gonna want more detail on all of these. So they experimented with mind control, behavioral modifications, and interrogation techniques. I mean, if I had a group like a CIA, this is kind of the stuff I would want them to look into. Now, using it on unwitting American and Canadian citizens, they just don't use it on unwitting Canadian and American citizens. If you used it, like, if you go abroad and do so, I'd care a lot less. I'm just saying. Oh, it's gonna take a while to think. I still have it at max, that's why. It takes forever. We'll leave it there. The Tuskegee Philippus study? Alright, let's go. How do I say this?
The Tuskegee Syphilis Study.
The Tuskegee Philippus study. Closest I'm gonna get. From 1932 to 1972, the U.S. Public Health Service tracked the progression of untreated syphilis in about 600 black men in Alabama. The men were told they were being treated for bad blood, but were deliberately denied treatment, even after penicillin became the standard cure in the 1940s. A whistleblower, Peter Buxton, eventually went to the press, and the Associated Press broke the story in 1972. It led to major reforms in research ethics and informed consent laws. Probably important. Informed consent laws. Like, this is the problem up here too. There was no informed consent. Oh, it went into huge detail. Let's just see. A good question. The Canadian chapter of MK Ultra is in some ways the most disturbing part of the whole story. Here's what's known. organized around your 4 questions. How many Canadians were affected? The exact number is genuinely uncertain, partly because record keeping was poor and many files were incomplete or destroyed. The work in question happened at the Allen Memory Institute in Montreal, led by psychiatrist Dr. Donald Edwin Cameron. Mostly between roughly 1957 and 1964, according to the Canadian government, approximately 80 patients underwent the most extreme depatterning treatment. But the broader pool of people subjected to Cameron's experimental methods, high dose LSD, drug induced sleep, psychic diving, ran into the hundreds. 77 victims received compensation from the Canadian government in 1992, while more than 250 claimants were denied compensation because they couldn't produce medical records, filed too late, or weren't considered to have suffered enough. You didn't suffer enough to get money. They just gave you LSD once. Sure, you didn't ask for the LSD, but you just got it once. One of the lawyers involved estimated there were about 200 people still owed compensation. So depending on how you count affected, the range runs from roughly 80, the worst case, to several hundred. Most patients hadn't come in for anything severe. They sought help for things like anxiety, depression, or postpartum struggles, and were experimented on without their knowledge or consent. Did anyone die? This is the part where I caution you against accepting a clear number from anyone because there isn't a well-documented, official confirmed death toll directly to the experiments. The harm is extensively documented and catastrophic but non-fatal in the immediate sense. Cameron's depatterning aimed to reduce patients to an essentially infantile state, inducing loss of the ability to speak, walk, or control one's bowels, and the result was generally irreversible. What? So, like, if you're telling me it was irreversible, that's also telling me that he was successful at depatterning, aimed to reduce patients to an essentially infantile state, including loss of the ability to speak, walk, or control one's bowels, and the result was generally irreversible. Patients emerged with massive permanent memory loss and an inability to function. Holy. And so these are the 80, roughly 80 that went through the depatterning. Many were institutionalized for the rest of their lives, and the long-term toll, including downstream effects on health and on families, is real but hard to attribute to a precise count of deaths. If you see a specific figure cited, I have not. Treat it skeptically unless it comes with clear sources, because the incompleteness of the records is itself one of the scandal's defining features. Whoa. Man. When was this? 1957 to 1964. That is wild. I mean, it's even like, why did you have to do it so many times? I mean, studying the brain and patterning and depatterning, like, that's wild. Long-term ramifications. The aftermath has stretched across more than 5 decades and is still ongoing. On compensation, a group of Canadian victims first sued the CIA in U.S. courts, and in 1988 the agency settled out of court. Canada then created a narrow program. Cameron's patients were given the right to $100,000 in restitution under the Allen Memorial Institute Depatterning Persons Assistance Plan, but eligibility was restrictive, which is why 250 plus people were turned away. Notably, then I mean like if they're giving out 100K, and this is a 1988 money, so let's say that's even more. And you went to see the doctor, you'd apply 100%. Apply. I mean, maybe they'll give me the 100K. So turning away the 200, 250, like that's surprised it wasn't more. From my understanding, there was about 80 we read up higher that went through the depatterning, which was the most severe case. Notably then, Justice Minister Kim Campbell refused to accept liability, and to this day, by these accounts, neither the CIA nor the Canadian government has apologized for the human experimentation conducted at the Allen Memorial Institute that they funded. The Canadian funding was substantial. The federal government... You telling me this wasn't just a rogue doctor, but this was government funded? That's crazy. I mean, they did things differently back in the mid-1900s, apparently. The federal government provided Cameron with more than $500,000 between 1950 and 1965, about $4 million in today's dollars. So, like, yeah, remember, like that's like an 8x, and so that's like 800,000 today. Of course, you'd apply if there's even a chance. More recently, the fight has moved to a class action. In some cases, victims' families were compensated only if they agreed to sign strict confidentiality and non-disclosure agreements, which advocates argued were designed to suppress the story. As of 2025, the litigation cleared a major hurdle. A Quebec Superior Court jury authorized a class action lawsuit naming the Royal Victorian Hospital, McGill University, and the Government of Canada as defendant, alleging the government funded and the institution enabled depatterning that violated patients' bodies and minds without consent. That case is built around dozens of families and potentially hundreds of class members. Beyond the legal fallout, the scandal became a landmark in the history of medical ethics, feeding into the development of stronger informed consent rules and oversight of human experimentations. More darkly, Cameron's techniques, sensory deprivation, disorientation, and the systematic breakdown of the personality are widely seen as having laid groundwork for later interrogation and torture methods. The CIA's KUBARK interrogation manual, and arguably the post 9/11 enhanced interrogation program, drew on this lineage of research. I mean, if you could depattern people, like, I imagine you could figure out pretty much anything. Did they figure out mind control? No. Shit. Come on. This is the bottom line, and it's worth stating plainly. MK Ultra was, on its own terms, a failure. The premise, drawn from ideas like those in the Mertraka candidate, was that people could be brainwashed and reprogrammed to carry out specific acts. They can apparently be deprogrammed. So Cameron's approach was to wipe the mind clean through depatterning and then drive new patterns in via endless looped recordings. What he and the broader program demonstrated, like, as soon as I heard this, I was like, the person forced to sit in a chair with the things you gotta watch the video. I've seen that in several documentaries or whatnot. Maybe that's how he did it. What he and the broader program demonstrated was that you can absolutely destroy a mind, erase memories, shatter a personality, induce profound regression, but you cannot reliably rebuild it into a controllable, programmed agent. There is no Manchuria candidate. I'm guessing that, I don't know where that's from. The research produced no working method for implanting durable new behaviors or creating a person who could be covertly directed. What it did yield was knowledge useful for coercion and breaking people down, which is precisely why its real legacy is in interrogation and torture rather than in anything resembling the science fiction version of mind control. The horror of the Canadian experiments isn't that they unlocked a secret power, it's that they inflicted enormous permanent damage on unwitting people in pursuit of something that was never achievable. So I thought like the CIA, so apparently the Canadian government was in on this. They were also pushing for the same thing the CIA was pushing for. And that is why Canadians were also affected. When I initially heard it, I was like, wait, they did this in Canada? No. Canada did this to Canada. I mean, shit. That's crazy. So you can destroy a mind. You can absolutely destroy a mind, but you cannot reliably build it into a controllable programmed agent. Easy to destroy, hard to build. All right, let's move on to the next one. COINTELPRO? What? Some of these have gotten some weird names.
COINTELPRO.
COINTELPRO. All right. That's all I'm getting. An FBI program, 1956 to 1971, that surveilled, infiltrated, and actively disrupted domestic political organizations, civil rights groups, the Black Panthers, anti-war activists, the Communist Party, and the Ku Klux Klan, among others. Tactics included illegal surveillance, forged letters, smear campaigns, and efforts to discredit figures including Martin Luther King Jr. It came to light when activists broke into an FBI field office in Media, Pennsylvania in 1971 and leaked the documents, with more details emerging via the Church Committee. Okay. So, surveilled, infiltrated, actively disrupted domestic political organizations. Well, that was something they did in the 1950s. Okay, we're just going to go through a quick overview of these, because each of these I could probably get sucked down into the rabbit hole. What was the other one? Okay, let's continue. Operation Northwoods, a 1962 proposal from the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff to stage false flag attacks. False flag attacks. Let me make sure I'm working with the right definition here. Covert political or military operation designed to deceive the public into believing it was carried out by a different group, country, or entity. So essentially, these are false flag attacks, right? Actively disrupted domestic political organization. One of the things you do for that is false flag attack. Okay, so a 1962 proposal from the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff to stage false flag attacks, including faked or even real acts of violence against Americans that would be blamed on Cuba to justify war against Castro. This is, by the way, Trump, this is the step you were missing for the Iran war. And the next conflict, which is going to be Cuba again, you got to set up some false flag attacks, man. Come on, get get in the game. President Kennedy rejected it, and it was never carried out. But the plan was real and was declassified in the late 1990s as part of the JFK recorded releases. Oh, so then nothing actually happened there. They were just considering false flag attacks to get American sentiment in the right place to justify a war. I mean, Trump just went and did it anyway. I guess he doesn't need it. He just does his own thing. who needs false flag attacks? The Gulf of Tonkin incident. The 1964 event used to justify escalating U.S. involvement in Vietnam. A first naval engagement on August 2nd was real, but the reported second attack on August 4th most likely never happened. Declassified NSA documents and internal analysts released around 2005 showed the second attack was based on misread radar and radio signals, yet it was used to pass the Gulf of Tonkin resolution that authorized broader military action. So that, not a false flag, because it was misinterpreted information. Where was another good one? I'm gonna put these here because I feel like each of these need their own review. Okay. Big Tobacco's concealment. Internal industry documents exposed largely through the 1990s litigation and the 1998 Master Settlement Agreement showed that cigarette companies had known for decades that smoking caused cancer and that nicotine was active while publicly denying both and funding research designed to manufacture doubt. Of course, Big Tobacco knew. Of course they did. All the oil companies have done detailed research into climate change because climate change is going to massively affect them and their revenue. And they all found out long ago that climate change was going to be very bad, and they started actively pushing to deny climate change and to distort public perception of climate change because it was going to negatively impact their industries. Big Tobacco did the same thing. They're copying Big Tobacco's playbook. Like today, we have strict laws against tobaccos and cigarettes specifically. But it took a long time to get there because of the active campaign they ran against it. And just like that, oil companies are running the same campaign for climate change to slow our to keep us dependent on oil and slow us from other forms of energy development, and so they can continue to make profit. Big business is not on your side, for sure. This is one of the reasons why it's so important to get big business out of politics, specifically big business money out of politics. Iran-Contra. In the mid-1980s, the Reagan administration secretly sold weapons to Iran, then under a U.S. embargo, and fueled the proceeds to Contras rebel in Nicaragua. Deliberately circumventing a congressional funding ban. It broke open in 1986, led to televised hearings, and resulted in several convictions. Oh. So you couldn't give funding to the rebels in Nicaragua, and so instead you circumvented your own embargo, sold weapons to Iran, and used that money to give the proceeds to the Contra rebels in Nicaragua. Okay. Man, that's wild. Sugar industry research manipulation. Documents uncovered by researchers and published in the JAMA Internal Medicine in 2016 revealed that in the 1960s, the Sugar Research Foundation paid Harvard scientists to downplay sugar's link to heart disease and shift blame onto dietary fat. That funded narrative influenced nutritional guidance for years. There's a pattern here. Big tobacco, big sugar. These conspiracy theories around big business, they seem to be true more often than the ones around the government. NSA mass surveillance. For years, claims that the agency was conducting warrantless bulk collection of communications were waved off. In 2013, Edward Snowden leaked documents concerning programs like PRISM, and the bulk collection of Americans' phone metadata revealed the actual scale of domestic and global surveillance. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's gotten a lot worse. I'm just gonna expect, like, they got things like Palantir now. I'm gonna say that it's gotten a lot worse. We have generally lost the fight for domestic and global surveillance. A couple of these come with a useful caveat. Operation Northwood was only ever a proposal, not something carried out. And Operation Gladio is solidly real as a structure, even though specific claims tying it to particular terror attacks remain debated. It's worth keeping that distinction in mind. The program exists, and the program did this specific thing aren't always confirmed to the same degree. If any of these interest you, okay, yeah. Yeah. That was a quick look at some of the real conspiracy theories that have turned out real. I might go deeper into some of those another day. They've made it conspiracy theories that just generally have made it onto my list. I'll